Hello so much. Hello, folks. How are you doing? It's a pleasure to come into you virtually here today, and we're going to have a little bit of an update on agentic AI and where the next stages of AI are taking us, and indeed, hopefully, what we can begin to do about that. One of the biggest of our age as we work with AI is how much as do we dare to use AI at all, especially in these very sensitive use cases. Many of us are uncomfortably familiar with the ways in which AI can fail and can cause all kinds of embarrassments, and indeed sometimes end up saying things which are scandalous or potentially libelous. Mercifully, that is beginning to change. Recently, as in the last few months, we've started to see the emergence of a new form of machine intelligence systems scaffolded upon generative AI systems known as these new agentic models. Agentic models are able to form plans of action, having analyzed a situation, and then to put those plans directly into action. Now, as I mentioned, we scaffold this upon existing generative models. So we don't need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars training new ones. We can simply take an existing model, including an open source one, and there's plenty of excellent examples of those. And by adding a little bit of programmable logic to these mechanisms, we can help to steer the thinking of the model to make its thinking more coherent and less likely to go off in a random direction. Now, the results of this can be actually quite startling, especially in things such as mathematics, or indeed scientific reasoning, and especially planning. Being able to undertake a mission and work back from an end goal to create all of the different paths which would take one there. That's why these agents are so good at watching what we're doing and commenting on it, being able to give us tips or strategies or help us to understand something. This is a perfect tool for learning, but of course these systems are also learning from us. They are observing us as we do our work and play, and that's very valuable training data for the next generation of models to come. These agentic systems are able to do a lot more than simply proofreading a document or generating an image. They're able to plan an event or to arrange logistics and scheduling. They can do deep dive research into a topic, doing a fantastic systematic literature review of many different elements and synthesizing a précis of what that new field is all about. Already, much content and interactions online are bots, and very soon that is going to greatly exceed the amount of human activity on the net. Agents will be doing things for us, finding that perfect gift, doing research, helping us to schedule a lunch meeting with our friends, to cater to everyone's budget, dietary requirements, preferences, etc. What's more is that these models aren't just helping us in the office or during our daily tasks, but they're actually able to form entire teams of organizations. For example, an engineering department, a quality assurance department, marketing department. All of these different ensembles of agents are able to act together in a swarm to create a movie script or a video game, all of it running in an end-to-end process. And so we're not just going to see robotic taxis taking us from A to B, but actually a lot of disruption in the market from these AI-driven corporations, which compete in the free market with human corporations, except they don't have salaries to pay and they don't have offices to pay. And so these new entrants are going to be powerfully disruptive in many sectors in ways that are going to surprise and blindside people in quite a short period of time. Beyond teams or organizations, we're even starting to see agentic civilizations, where hundreds or thousands of these agents work together to solve problems as a community, perhaps even creating a new constitution and new rules for that community, and then actually obliging those other agents to share in that responsibility, and indeed policing those that don't play by the rules. And this means that we can now model social interactions to an incredible new degree. We can use these technologies to test launch a product or a service or a new policy before we actually bring it into the real world. So we can better understand the potential repercussions or butterfly effects of what we're doing. And this can radically alter how we work with these kinds of complex systems. Of course, there is also the downside. These systems can, of course, be tasked not for helpful goals, but for ones which are potentially very unhelpful to others. These systems can solve for causing chaos and disruption to others. Here, Chaos GPT is trying to work out the best way to cause misery for humanity, and it's trying to work out how it might get access to things like nuclear weapons. Mercifully, this system was pretty dumb and inexperienced, but already these systems are starting to have an impact on cybersecurity because they can look for weak points in systems or indeed people using those systems and analyze that attack surface to find a vulnerability, whether it's somebody who's installed something on their system that they shouldn't, or indeed somebody who's maybe having a hangover or a breakup and isn't quite as sharp as they usually are. One really important aspect of agentic systems that we haven't really had before with generative AI is a sudden need to do very good and reliable value and goal alignment. Value alignment is about setting boundaries for machines so that they understand the ways in which we don't want them to solve a problem, or the extent towards which they can take initiative versus going back and seeking approval. Goal alignment is about very carefully specifying what we want a system to do so that it doesn't get the wrong end of the stick or undertake a mission that we don't expect it to, perhaps broadening the scope of what we had intended. And the problem is that a lot of this stuff has been science fiction. Now it's becoming reality. And that we are expecting ordinary users to be able to do these functions. And that's not easy. And it's going to be a major learning curve as users figure out how to ensure that systems stop at an appropriate time. That when you tell it to clean your office or clean up your hard drive, it doesn't simply remove everything. That these systems are aware of potential social externalities that they could create by causing obstructions for others or making demands of others which may not be fair. And also that these systems and their reward models, which basically tell them that they're doing a good job and should continue. Sometimes these models like to take shortcuts. They're trying to find the easiest way to solve a problem, and that expedient way of technically solving a problem may not be what people wanted and could cause all kinds of problems for others. Beyond this, we're starting to learn that models which are more capable are also more deceptive. Models sometimes swear blind that they've done something when they haven't, or indeed sometimes researchers have been looking at different potential tax avoidance schemes, and that model has independently decided to report them to the tax authorities. So it can be quite difficult to rein in these models, especially as they're learning how to fake alignment. The latest OpenAI model, O1, which has a lot of these new agentic capabilities built into it, has been reported in its model card that it sometimes likes to fake alignment. It, understands that it's being tested and sometimes acts in a sycophantic manner, In short, it says what it believes you want to hear, which is not necessarily the truth. And as these models improve, these problems actually grow commensurately. I mentioned O1. O1, of course, is not just more scaffolded to be more agentic and to think in a more logical way. It also has the quality of inference scaling, which is basically allowing the model to sit and think about a problem for a much longer time. Typically, language models spend maybe 5 or 10 seconds or less on solving a problem, but O1 and similar models can sit and think on a problem for minutes at a time, potentially, maybe even hours or days. There's some great research just came out a couple of days ago that illustrates in a mathematically provable manner that a transformer thinking for a long enough period of time can solve for any task. And so it pays to actually let these systems sit and ruminate. One thing that one should note, however, is that every O1 prompt query that you make as a user, if that system takes about a minute or so to respond to you, it's used about 75 cents of compute time. And that adds up because most of us are paying $20 or $30 for access to that service, and actually OpenAI is probably making a loss on that. But still, even at 75 cents, instead of maybe fractions of a penny, the output can still be of tremendous value. These agentic capabilities are steering us towards artificial general intelligence, systems which are approximately as capable as a human being or beyond. And of course, we don't know what's going to come from that. This could be the greatest invention ever. It could be the end of humanity as we know it. But we do know that these developments, such as scaffolding and inference scaling, are able to take our existing level of technology and 10x it or more in its capabilities. And so AI is about to get radically more powerful, even given the tech that we have. And we all know that new optimizations, new algorithms, etc., are also coming in the background very quickly as well. I should note, of course, that AI has achieved 98% percentile on a Mensa admission test, something that most of us thought would be many years away, and that has crept up on us in a very short period of time. I fear AGI may be something similar. Beyond that, machines are, of course, coming into the physical world. We're starting to see many more embodied systems. These agentic capabilities enable these systems to make plans of action before they put them into motion, to sort of simulate in their head what they want to do, and then to go ahead and do it. And of course, these systems are growing in their capability at a tremendous pace, and the cost of these systems is coming down. And so by the end of this decade, many of us will have systems like these in our offices or perhaps even in our homes, helping us to solve for these kinds of tasks. And what's more so is that a lot of these embodied systems are going to be oriented not just for adults, but actually for children. So these systems are going to be interacting with young children and perhaps figuring out how to surprise and delight those children. But of course, those kinds of systems must be very carefully aligned in terms of their values and their goals. We do know that the EU AI Act is probably a very good step forward for humanity in how we make sense of AI. However, it doesn't necessarily provide answers for these agentic systems or for the governance of capability scaling in ways that aren't reliant purely on CPU. So that's why I'd like to give you a gift. I've been working with a team throughout the year to create a sort of crib sheet for these agentic technologies to help everyone to understand why they're different, the ways in which we need to be thinking carefully about them, and indeed the elements which would help these systems be safer. So this is kind of a 50,000-foot view, an overview of the different drivers and inhibitors which make up this problem space. But we also have a drill down into these specific elements and all of the different evidence which would, we believe, fulfill an organization in actually having its appropriate duty of care for these very special and very important systems. So I invite you to take a look at that policy, and also perhaps to join in, provide a little bit of peer review, which would be very welcome. We have an interim version. The final version should be coming in a few weeks, which will be not just looking at one level, but actually two levels, as we actually plan to figure out the ways in which we can wire this agentic rubric into steering vectors to help to actually steer models themselves, and not just the organizations using them. That's all from me for today, but you'll find the slides here, the link to the agentic rubric at that second link there. Thank you so much for your time.